Hello everybody. Molly wanted to say hello and make a quick debut before we kick him out. He's just been enjoying the warm weather. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. Of course, it's your girl Erin and we're back with another everything that I've crocheted in the last month. So I think technically this is actually May and June just because your girl's been lagging a little bit. So I didn't realize I actually crocheted a ton of things, but again, granted, this is over 2 months time. So we're gonna go through every single one of these projects. We're gonna make it quick. I'm also going to be trying on every single item and just kind of showcasing it to you guys so you get a better feel for how this looks on. But thankfully, we are diving into summer wear. I think spring has far from passed, so we get to wear some cute, a little bit more skin showing outfits. And I don't know if you guys can see, but my palette has kind of shifted over the last few months. I have a lot of pinks, a lot of like lavenders and purples. Fun little collection to get through. Of course, if you guys are not already subscribed here to my channel, please take a second to do that. We just hit 100K. We're trying to keep going, keep growing. Join the Fiber family, hang out with us. We love to just chat. And of course, don't forget to also follow my Instagram and my TikTok because I'm trying to just post more casual, fun content over on there. So let us dive into the main. First and foremost is a set that I made for a Hobie challenge. I believe that this was the On Holiday with Hobie. So for my little creations here, I crocheted a little mesh vest along with a matching pair of mesh shorts, but I feel like my favorite part by far is actually this highlight trim or border that I added all the way around each little leg cuff there, as well as around just kind of the outer shell of the vest. Some quick details about this project. I did use the Hobie Friends wheel to make both the top and the bottoms, and I believe that this is a 50% cotton and 50% acrylic fiber. So it's really, really great for summer. It's gonna have a lot of aeration, a lot of breathability because of that cotton, but at the same time, having the acrylic mixed in does make this rather stretchy, which I don't typically get from a cotton yarn. This was one of those projects where it didn't start to come together and look somewhat wearable until the very end. I normally like to size things up against my body and get a better feel for how it's going to turn out, but for this one, I kind of just winged it and figured it out as I went. To be honest, it's a pretty simple design. As you can see, it's just a bunch of double crochets stacked on top of each other with a little chain one space to give it more of that meshy effect. And I actually really like how this turned out because originally I did want a more wide gaping mesh type of stitch, but having double stranded with the Friends wheel, I did end up getting somewhat of a smaller gauge, but I feel like this looks a lot more wearable either to the beach or at the pool than something that has a ton of holes poking through it. But as I said, it didn't really come together until the very end where I added this really gorgeous contrast border, but I decided to make this little border with picot stitches. So as you can see when I spread these apart, they're really just 1 picot, 2 picot, and 3 all placed into the same exact stitch. So it kind of gives it like a half flower shape effect. As I mentioned earlier though, I did make a pair of matching shorts. So I did want to make sure to make this a little bit more size inclusive, but the saving grace with a pair of shorts using cotton fiber is that I actually went in by hand and stitched on 3 rows of elastic so that way I can stretch it out, get it over my big ol' hips, and then it'll just kind of shrink back onto my waist. So these are a lot more versatile. One of my pet peeves with crochet is honestly the fact that once you kind of wear something a few times, it stretches out, it doesn't naturally go back to its original shape. So adding elastic into whatever project that you're working on is a huge time saver. So that is essentially the first little matching set that I made, I believe in May. Let's go ahead and move it on. We're already talking way too much to another mesh project. Now I have a full tutorial on this cute little crochet mesh sleeve right here. It's very, very simple. In all honesty, I made this using 2 big gigantic rectangles. And then for the sleeves, I was really just kind of crocheting in the round. Now what made this tutorial and this project a little bit more tailored towards my liking, again, is the fact that I used more of a open mesh stitch. So as you can see here, it is rather see-through. That's kind of the whole point when you have sleeves or a bolero, is that you just want a little bit of an accent piece to throw on over your existing outfit. Now with this tutorial, instead of using a standard double crochet to make the mesh, because I double stranded with a DK weighted fiber, essentially I turned it into a super chunky weighted fiber, which allowed me to use a much more elongated stitch. So believe it or not, I did use treble crochets for the entire pattern. It's just a treble, a chain one, treble, chain one. I feel like a really interesting thing with the mesh pattern, it almost gives the design a little bit of a fishtail stitch. As you can see, one row of double crochets or trebles go one direction, and then on the following row, they kind of lean towards the other side. So it does give it a little bit more of a textural type of design, a little bit more intricate looking than it really is. But honestly, this is such an easy, quick piece to make. I believe I made this whole mesh sleeve in just under a day, maybe a day and a half. So if you guys have some scrap spare yarn, really quick project to make for yourself, make for your loved ones, chuck it on when you guys are going to the beach, to church, by the pool, on a cute little coffee date. Super simple, super easy. Now the piece that you all have probably been waiting for. I just recently launched this tutorial at this time about a week ago, so it's relatively new to me, but this is the infamous top down or raglan cardigan. As you guys know, previously here on my channel, I have a specialty for making raglan type of outfits, but this is the first time that I made something that was open in the front. So you're essentially taking that very basic and simple raglan pattern design, but you're just leaving it open in the front, so your work isn't necessarily connected in the round, but it's the same exact steps. But here she is in all of her glory. Now the really fun part about this entire tutorial that I do have available on my channel is the fact that I got to use all of my own hand-created items, from the hooks to the stitch markers, all the way to the yarn itself. I decided to double strand my yarn again. I used one hank of my fingering in colorway Garden Party, and then another hank of yarn in my mohair lace weight yarn, and this is just in the colorway Buddha. So although the Garden Party does have a very kind of ethereal, flowery, summer, springy type of vibe, by throwing in that little bit of mohair lace weight yarn, it does give the overall project a slight wash of like a minty, julepy green color, which I absolutely love. And on top of that, having that lace weight mohair in there does give the project a little bit more bulk to it, but it's still super lightweight because mohair only weighs like 0.1 pounds. It's super, super lightweight. And as you can see here on the inside, or the open portion of the cardigan, I did go in and hand sew a few spare buttons that I had in my collection. So I can totally leave it open if I would like, or I can close it up in the front, be a little bit more modest. Now, another really fun thing with this tutorial that I wanted to incorporate was the ability or the possibility to have a little bit more of a feminine touch to this design. So if you guys would like to follow the original raglan cardigan or the original raglan pattern that I have, you can just work straight down on this cardigan, have it look a little bit more boxy and more casual fit. But because I decided to go in with increases in the round on every single row, it does give it a very slight wavy or frilly effect. So again, it's just kind of adding to that ethereal, feminine look that I'm always striving for. In the tutorial, I did want this cardigan to stop pretty short up on my arms because again, I want this to look a little bit more feminine. I've said that word so many times, but if you guys would like, you can continue to work in the round on your armhole sections and make these long sleeve, half sleeve, 3/4 sleeve. The options are completely up to you. I hope to see more of your guys' cardigan projects or whips over on social media. Of course, as always, feel free to tag me so that I can repost you guys on my stories, give you guys a little bit of a shout out, a little bit of encouragement. Enough rambling about the cardigan. Let's move on to, oh, I almost forgot that I pulled this out. We're just gonna touch on this really, really briefly. This is a really fun, somewhat unique type of design. As you can see here, it's kind of like a trapezoid dress. This was another project that I made for not necessarily a Hobbii challenge, but I used some of Hobbii's new yarn at the time. I believe that this was their Pearly Haze fiber. It's a very interesting type of yarn to work with. The yarn itself actually has kind of like a reflection or a sheen to it, which ultimately makes it very, very shiny in the sun. If I can give you guys a little bit of a close-up, can you guys see like the light refracting off of this yarn? And I'd have to say that this is also very touchably soft on the skin as well. There is somewhat of a fluffiness to this chainette fiber, so it does make it very comfortable on the skin. Now, naturally, this type of fiber is very, very lightweight, but because you can see I used a ton of yarn, this dress is a little bit heavier, so I do have to kind of be careful when I'm wearing this out and about. It can kind of start to sag down because I just used so much yardage of yarn to make this. I actually made this dress using only 2 massive granny squares. Originally, I did want to make a ton of tiny, colorful granny squares and sew them all together to make a dress. I don't want to have a million ends to sew in at the end of this project. I would really rather just continue to make one large square instead of a bunch of tiny ones, which essentially is what a granny square is. So, believe it or not, I really just have one basic granny square right there, one in the back, and then thankfully I found a little tutorial here on YouTube that showed me how to stitch 2 squares together to give it a little bit more of a V-neck front instead of something that was kind of straight across like an actual square. So that was kind of my saving grace. She definitely helped me put the entire dress together, and I don't think I would have been able to figure that out on my own. So I will leave a little link down below of the video that I used to sew the dress together. But here she is. I also felt like this dress was really perfect for any type of festival or concert type of occasion. I think I took photos wearing this dress with some cowboy boots in a grass field, and honestly, if I were to attend Coachella or Stagecoach or any type of concert like that, I would most definitely want to wear something handmade like this. Let's go ahead and pick up the pace a little bit. I know I jab way too much. Believe it or not, I made this very basic knit top on my knitting machine. I really just wanted to test out this yarn, which was the K&C, I think it's like a lurex and cotton fiber. But as you guys can see with that lurex in there, it does have somewhat of a glittery type of effect. Now, normally when you guys have glitter strands in your yarn, it can make it a little bit itchy and scruffy, but I found that with this fiber, I don't notice it at all. Originally, I did attempt crocheting with this fiber, but because it was labeled as a #1 sock yarn or a fingering weight yarn, I found that when I crochet with it, it tended to split on me on every single stitch that I created. So in the end, I opted to use my knitting machine, which was a saving grace. I only made 2 rectangles and sew them together along the edge seam. Although it does look a little bit funky here on the bottom, I actually really like this imperfect type of effect that it created. But for what it's worth, I think it's a really simple, easy top to create, and you can kind of just pair this with anything. Again, it's very kind of flowy, feminine, kind of girly. So here's another project for the month of May. Moving it along to the next project. Now, usually I love to hype up my makes. I love to talk about how beautiful they are and how much I love them. And for the amount of work and effort and blood, sweat, tears, and time that I put into making this really fun, colorful vest, I have to admit that it did not come out the way I was expecting. I try to do my best to be as transparent here as possible with you guys. And this is just one of those projects that in theory, it seemed amazing. As I was making it, it seemed very, very possible to turn out stunning and cute and perfect. But the other day I was stitching the whole thing together and it kind of just turned into a big old mess. Now, looking at her upon first glance, she looks fantastic. She looks really, really fun. But I had a huge issue creating this vest when it came to adding the border along the outside of my panels. What I should have done was be a little bit more meticulous with the amount of stitches that I was placing. I was trying so hard to finish up this project super, super fast because I had put it off for so long that I was just in a huge rush and I wasn't counting my stitches. I was kind of just being willy-nilly with it. I was trying to just wing it and make it work. And this is one of those projects where it looks too symmetrical to just wing it. The inner portions of my vest don't even match up. I have one point that's way up here. I actually like the placement of this one. But then the other one is like way down over here. I added way too many stitches on this side versus this one. And then, I mean, I don't know, it doesn't look how I wanted it to look. So I was kind of disappointed the other day when I was trying to finish her up. Another fatal design flaw that I can't believe that I created was the fact that on one panel, I went in by hand and weaved in every single end that I had every single time I switched colors. And then on the other panel, I just cut them off. I committed crochet perjury. Now you guys may be thinking, that's not a big deal. I cut off my ends all the time. I don't sew them in. Unfortunately for me, although I tied triple knots onto every single strand of yarn, the knots are coming undone and there's nothing that I can do to save them. All of my little knots are gonna come undone and then it's just going to unravel. So it was such a learning, it was such a mistake. I don't know what I was thinking, but again, I was trying to take the short route. But let me be the first to tell y'all, weave in your ends. There's certain projects that it doesn't really matter. But for a piece that you're putting so much time and effort into, it's kind of worth it to weave them in and save yourself the devastation and heartbreak of your project just completely coming undone later. So those are my main issues with this cardigan. Now, if I put her on and I lace her up, I can kind of get away with it. I can make it look cute. But for a crochet designer like me, I have a little bit more perfectionism embedded in me that I'm a little disappointed in myself for not doing better. But you know what? Not every single project can be a win, okay? Sometimes we have to take the L, take it graciously and humbly, and just accept where we've had our faults. One thing that I am proud of myself for creating with this little project here is just the amount of color changes that I had. I've never created something with this much color, and I've never changed out my yarn as much as this one. So as you can see, it's a really, really crazy striped type of effect. There's so many different colors going on here. We should always strive to do better and try to recreate our items with a little bit more pizzazz, a little bit more skill, but I'm trying my best to not beat myself up over the slight disaster that this turned into. So we're gonna forget about that one. And let's catch up to the last two and final items that I just finished up about a week ago. I have two really fun items, but you know what? Let's start off with this one. If you guys could not tell, this is my infamous kaleidoscope colorway on my boucle DK weight fiber. So I wanted to kind of test out my new yarn because I had yet to actually use my own boucle fiber. And I've been having a ton of fun with it. Now, as you can see, it's still a whip, it's still a work in progress, but I'm getting very close to the finish line. So I felt safe enough coming onto camera today and just showing you guys what she's looking like. This is a really fun skirt, little design that I'm working on. I haven't decided yet if I want to actually release a tutorial on how I'm making this, but believe it or not, I am trying to implement a little bit of a top-down or raglan style technique with this skirt. So what I have here, I mean, just look how flowy it is. It's so fun. So my process with making this skirt is that I originally started off with a very basic rectangular band, and this is just going to be the part that wraps around my lower belly. I did use my little crochet stitch book to find a very intricate and fun pattern, and it kind of gets lost in translation because this yarn is so textured. You can't necessarily see the stitch design that I have going on unless I really stretch it out, and then you can start to see a little bit of that pattern in there. So I feel like the pattern that I used would have been a lot better implemented with a standard superwash fiber or a cotton fiber. But what I decided to do with this little raglan-esque technique is that I place a stitch marker in originally 4 different spots along my rectangle band, and in those spots, that is where I would place a little bit of an increase so that over and over every single row, it gets slightly wider at that section, and that is what allows for a lot of this ruffled wavy effect. So if I fold her in half here, look how cute this looks. So this is what I have so far for the little whip. She's gonna be finished up really, really soon here, but I have been falling in love with my own boucle fiber. It's so fun and unique and different, and and I never find boucle types of fibers that I like in store. So the fact that I got to just completely make this up on the whim, on my own choosing, and it's turning out like this. Do we also see the amount of crazy color that Kaleidoscope has? But I just love the amount of pink in it. You guys know I'm not a big pink girl, but something about all the other colors mixed in, it just really speaks to me, and I can't wait to wear this one out and about. So stay tuned on my Instagram and my TikTok to see this bad boy being finished up relatively soon. Let's move on to the very last and final project, because I've been talking for close to an hour now. I just finished up this little t-shirt, this little crop top, and it turned out a lot better than expected. So again, I am using my own hand-dyed fiber. This is my colorway Fairy's Breath on my cotton DK. So it's 50% superwash merino wool and 50% cotton. And I really wanted to test out this cotton fiber to again make another summery, hot inspired, summer inspired project. And I ended up with this really fun ruffled or ruched effect crop top. What I really wanted to do initially with this top was create some type of ruched effect section for the chesty besties. So this is what I created. As you guys know with my previous videos, I do have a particular liking for scoop neck style tops just because I feel like they look a lot better on my body style. So what I did here was essentially create two separate rectangles, but here on the outer portion of the rectangle, I did add a few rows of increases on one edge. That way it would kind of slope down across my chest and ultimately give me that scoop neck feel. I also decided to crochet a very simple I-cord that I could lace through the very top portion of the little rectangle, and that way I can actually cinch up this top a little bit, and it'll have more of that ruched effect or more of that gathered type of feel. So depending on how much skin you want to show or how gathered you want it to look, I can just scrunch it up a little bit more, or I can space it out and have it look a little bit more plain. It has the ribbing on every single row, and ultimately when we do kind of cinch it up, it adds to that gathered effect, and it just makes it stand out a little bit more. So the cups themselves were pretty straightforward. I just kind of measured myself and created the chain to that length, and I just kind of figured it out as I went. I also decided to leave the very center of the top open in case I would like a little bit more skin showing. But of course, as you guys can see here, I do have a little tie in the front, so I can tighten it up quite a bit, and then nothing's going to peek through. So she's not gonna be too revealing. And then as for the bottom portion of this top, we just wanted an old school throwback backless crop top feel. So I just left it open here on the back portion, created another I-cord, and laced her all up. So she is kind of made to fit, but I fell in love with Fairy's Breath. These colors are so romantic, and they just kind of scream like woodlandy fairy vibes. I don't know what it is, but I have become a fiend for using my own hand-dyed yarn. I should have been doing this from the beginning, but it's never too late. I'm definitely on a little bit of a hype with my own yarn, so I want to continue to make patterns with my own creations. And this way you guys can also see for yourself how my colorways are going to work up when you knit or crochet with them yourselves. So that is pretty much everything that I have for the months of May and June. I can't believe I haven't made one of these recap videos in several months. I've been lagging a little bit, but I hope to get it together in the coming months. I have a lot of things in the works. By the time that you guys are probably seeing this video, I'm officially gonna have my own hand-dyed yarn up at a local yarn shop over in Redlands. So I'm gonna leave the dates here on screen if you guys would like to pop by, check out my little table, purchase some yarn, or just hang out, crochet and knit with other fiber artists, other like-minded individuals. I'm so excited to be able to have my own creations finally up in stores. This has been a dream of mine, and hopefully in the coming years or months, I can just continue to have little pop-ups, little flea markets, continue to sell my creations as well as my yarn. But I'm gonna go ahead and close out the video here. I love you guys so much. Thank you again for just tuning in, for hanging out with me. Let me know down below in the comments what you guys have been making this month, if you've made anything from my tutorials. Again, feel free to tag me. I wanna see what you guys make. I wanna support you as well. Love you guys so much.